Midlife Krisis. That's the name of this show. I'm Brian.
I'm Robbie.
Start this off with a gentleman's handshake. Yep, you'll get it. That's the one. Okay, so this show is a show that is first and foremost about video games, but we will be bird walking and bouncing around all over the place.
90s culture.
90s culture is another one.
Pop culture.
Pop culture is yet another one. Culture. I don't think so. You don't have a lot of time for that. We don't have enough.
High culture.
You're
into the Louvre.
Mm-hmm. Cheese cultures to get proper curdling done.
Yeah.
In all seriousness. So Midlife Krisis is a show where two friends of almost 30 years. In fact, next year is 30 years that I've known you.
29 years.
Yep. As my good friends in the Miami Pound Machine would have it. The 69 boys call it 1990 Quad. That's when we met each other, 1990 Quad.
It's a good year.
So we've obviously played video games for many years together. That's a thing that we have in common. And now we're just doing it on a show, on a YouTube program.
We talk about video games enough that it would make sense. It does make sense and is making sense for us to do a show together to talk about video games. Specifically, the past, present, and future of video games. We used to be gamers. We still are, but we used to too. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of that. A lot of this is how it used to be, and this is how it is now. A lot of things that used to suck now that don't suck, or that sucked before that don't suck now. And things that do suck now.
Sometimes things suck now.
There's plenty of that too.
Sometimes things suck now. But let me show you something that indeed 100% doesn't suck.
Okay.
This is something unique to our show, and if this is not true, I don't care. I'm going to say that it is. But right there, that's our one and only Bob Ace. Now he's in Mario Paint, so I can do whatever I want with him.
All right, what are you doing with me in Mario Paint?
I don't know. Let's just figure it out. Let's just figure it out.
Right. So if you're not subscribing right now after seeing me put in 1992's masterpiece...
He's inside Mario Paint. Look at this. Look at what we're doing.
Bob the Ace.
Bob Ace.
So come for this incredible content while John Madden over here pulls up the Zoinkastrator to show me in...
You got it.
To show me in Mario Paint.
And watch this. Just like this segment, I can make you disappear. Oh, he's going. Goodbye, Bob Ace. We'll see you on the next one. And that next one is right now. So anyway, this is Midlife Krisis. Spelt with a K because video games.
Yeah.
We're both featured in a midlife crisis.
I think that's fair to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is our solution to the
midlife
crisis.
Look, so we could be careening down corners and Camaros.
Help us out with that.
But instead, we choose this to be our midlife crisis.
Healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. This healthy lifestyle of getting all jacked up on Taco Bell and then playing with Mario Paint. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing around these parts.
That's how we handle the midlife crisis.
That's how we handle a midlife crisis, for sure.
All right. So yeah, subscribe already.
Want to do this while we end this here, just because it's such a fancy trick, such a neat trick. And go here, and then I'm gonna go here. And then watch this.
While you're doing this, Brian, don't forget to tell them about your cousins too.
Oh yeah. So there are like the illustrious Andore family of Final Fight fame, and only in the Super Nintendo version of that game. I have a lot of identical cousins. Okay, they don't have names. They're never going to have names, but they will appear from time to time on the show, and they're not going to bother you, so you don't bother them, right?
Cousin Laserdisc.
Cousin Laserdisc. Yeah, it's a Christian name. It's a Christian name. Hold on, I just want to see myself real quick. Look at those. These are my shades. Hey, what up, dude?
We're going viral with this one.
Look at that. I'm badass. Thing about me is I'm super cool. And then I can also do this. Just like in case, So cool. Yeah.
So I know this is the intro to the show,
right.
but because you're doing all this Mario Paint stuff,
yes, sir.
Let me briefly tell people that Brian over here was so into Mario Paint that at one point...
Well, hold on. Let me cut you off real quick. You said the word was. So I want to correct the record. is just like Bret Hart.
Right.
The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Right. So he was the most into Mario Paint, still is the most into Mario Paint.
100%.
At one point in his 20s, I went over to his house to hang out, and he had like a milk crate full of Mario Paint games.
Yes, multiple, because you can only make one save.
And I asked him, why on earth do you have one Chrono Trigger, but you have like 18 different Mario Paints?
Yeah.
And the explanation I was given is that you can only have one save.
Yes.
So Brian would have a portfolio of Mario Paint games,
correct,
each one of which to chronicle his Vincent van Gogh-esque paintings and artistic creations.
Yeah.
So that's and now you could just see the pure unadulterated joy on your face.
Yeah. Look, I gave you blue boobs.
Wow, was that? I mean,
it's not really the most necessary. It's not full on necessary. I'm not going to say that it's full on necessary, but like, look.
Oh man. And now we're banned from YouTube.
Crap. Crap. Plus, you know what's funny is I picked the wrong tool there. I meant to do this to get rid of your blue boobs. And we're back. So anyway,
so with that amazing
introduction, we can be off to the races. Yeah. So here is whatever we're doing next.
Remember me? I'm from the Spin Doctors.
Whoa, what did you just do?
I turned
what the
off.
fuck did you just do? So it's over now. Just like E3. E3 is now over for all intents and purposes. So we're never going to be the most timely source of news in video games.
Almost timely.
This is almost timely news in that it's timely to us, but when this airs, who knows? So yet another death blow to E3 as a thing has happened. I just read Ubisoft has backed out.
That was as of this recording, that's the most recent.
That's the most recent one. Yeah. So before that, obviously, the first that I'm aware of that dropped off were Sony and Microsoft.
Right. And Nintendo was never really a part of it.
Well, no, Nintendo were a part of it initially. And then after the big two left, then Nintendo said, you know what, we're also done. We'll save the thousands of dollars that the show normally costs.
Yeah.
And, continue doing our directs, which people love.
Okay.
And that's kind of a bigger point too that I wanted to talk about, like as a segue into E3. The Nintendo Direct has become an event unto itself that people, really, really passionately nerd out over, and like they pour over the footage and all that stuff.
And has been copied, emulated and copied by Sony.
100%.
And now Microsoft.
Yes. That's like the whole deal is that everyone saw the success Nintendo is having with this thing. And they obviously saw how much money they were spending on their dumb booths. Well, they're not dumb, and we'll get to that. They're just not dumb. But they were spending a lot of money for it. And then now they can have these events that 100% controlled. They're in controlled environments. Yeah. The footage that comes out is all under lock and key and all that stuff. Obviously, stuff leaks. But like usually, like these events are totally within their control, and that's probably the biggest appeal for them, in addition to saving the money.
And part of the control is they select what time they're going to air, so they have 100% of eyeballs on just them doing their event, as opposed to having to share space with other large publishers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So everyone has followed suit in this direct thing, and now, as a result, going to E3. E3 is now dead, even though it's not officially, as of this recording. Who knows when this goes out to YouTube? Right. But it's pretty much dead, but not officially DED dead all the way.
It's not dead the way that like when somebody goes under the guillotine and they have their head severed, there's like 3 seconds or whatever where everything is still operating.
Yes,
that's what E3 is right now.
That's exactly. It's on the death bell tolling for sure. But you and I, Uncle Bob, we have a rich and illustrious history of going into E3. Both legitimately and arguably, or maybe inarguably more fun, illegitimately.
That's right.
Sneaking in is obviously what I'm referring to. And we've both snuck in, right? Didn't you do an E3 where you snuck in?
I think so. I think 1 year, but I had gotten so good at it at that point, and not that it requires a special skill set or anything, but
you do have to lie.
Yeah,
you've got to be fine with lying.
And we haven't said this on the show yet, but I am a licensed attorney in the state of California. Not that those two things have anything to do with each other at all.
Draw your own conclusions.
So one year, hopefully the State Bar doesn't ever see this podcast.
They won't.
This video.
They won't.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
So one year I borrowed a badge from somebody and then walked in pretending to be somebody else, which was the way that you would do it at E3.
Yes.
And had a hootin' good time. And then in several other years, I perpetuated a fraud by allowing you to get in by wearing the badge of somebody else.
3 times. So I snuck in with you 3 times. So my first time, you were already working in the industry in QA. And so, which that'll be a separate thing. We'll tell those stories down the road because it's fun. Your background in video game development gives an interesting twist to things on this show. But yeah, your first E3 with your name on your badge that said you worked for a video game company was the first year that I snuck in, I believe initially as a Vietnamese person.
So that was
which shows you all the way that the security of E3 that wasn't a thing.
A little lax.
Yeah.
But how dare they judge you based on your name anyway?
They never did.
They
absolutely never did.
Yeah. So they made the right choice.
Yes, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
This was, I think, 2003 specifically. Because, again, we have to date ourselves at every opportunity for the Midlife Krisis show.
Exactly. We'd want the people to know that we're old and desperately clinging on to youth, which is why we're talking about video games like the cool kids do. Like all those cool studs out there.
And talking about stuff that we did 20 years ago.
Well, it's because we did, damn it.
And we were adults then, too.
That's true. We were young adults then, and now we're old, broken adults. Well, I'm more broken, but old adults in the now. Okay, so what are your initial thoughts, feelings, suggestions about the death of E3? Like, where do you feel about this before we get into our history and all that other stuff?
So, and I looked online to see the reaction, and it really is the same reaction across the board, particularly for anybody who remembers E3 in its heyday, which is one of just the death of youth. It would be like if you watched a show where you were a kid growing up and then you stopped watching it for a while and then all of a sudden the show's canceled. It's like, oh man, I was kind of over it, but I'm still bummed out that this thing that was a big part of my life and a big part of my youth and a big part of the culture during an important time in my life, that it's going away and it's not going to exist anymore. So when you see the articles and then you see it's sort of pathetic the way that it's dying and the way that the company that's attempting to host the event this year is trying to make believe that it's still going to happen.
It's really sad to watch.
The whole thing is really sad.
The limping along of it is
totally
really sad.
And you can't help, if you're me, and I'm sure you, but think back to sneaking into E3, all those memories, all those events. And for me, in particular, it's sort of a cross of 3 different things. On the one hand, as a lover of video games, it was just a really fun event that you would look forward to all year.
It was like the most fun thing, especially because we knew that for a number of years, we always knew that we were going to go, either sneaking in or later, for me, legitimately. For you, legitimately, in my sneaking in years.
Plan your summer around it.
Yeah, exactly. No, you literally, you would plan your summer around the whole
and then
thing.
looking forward to the big events, and then when you knew that there was a new console that was going to be announced or games shown off, you do all that. So that was the first thing, was just that the newsiness part of it, and being excited like you would be on Christmas about something big that's coming down the pipe.
Right.
The second part that I'm sad for is our lost youth. Again, this show is called Midlife Krisis.
Yes.
And a not insignificant part of the heyday of E3, and literally the absolute cultural zenith of E3. When it was at its peak, that's when you and I were going there together.
Yeah.
And having a lot of fun and making a lot of memories. And we'll tell some of those stories now. But
definitely we will.
Those were the best times. So that's the second part of it, is just, oh man, remember Brian and I going there?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it's been 20 years. Oh my God. So you start thinking about that stuff.
So this year that you bring that up, this year is 20 years ago, the first year that you and I went to E3 together.
Yeah.
Which it's, not to darken the mood, but I also watched a documentary about Iraqi soldiers who started this year, this month.
Perfect
20 years ago.
Perfect comparison.
Perfect comparison. It was a product of its time, but just all these things that are coming up that have hit these 20-year marks.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. And it does put you in a frame of I'm old now. This is exactly what this is like.
And the thing about that is that we were adults then. I said that a minute ago.
Yes.
I'm saying it again. It's like 20 years ago, we were still adults, and we're still adults now.
Yeah.
That's like, if you wonder where Midlife Crisis comes from,
it might just be that.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Just a couple of lifers, making our way.
So then the third thing about E3, when I think about that, is that for me in particular, when I started going to E3, it was, I think my first E3 was the year 2000.
Yeah.
I was working at Best Buy at the time. And so I got into the show as a retail product salesman for Best Buy, which is, you're in the industry because Best Buy sells video games, but you're not really in the industry.
It's the best. It's the best part.
And as a guy who is an aspiring video game designer or wanted to be in like the legit video game industry,
Yeah.
I remember walking around E3 and then thinking, man, like somebody around here has a job to offer me, right? I just got to like pull the right person aside and say, and it really felt that way in those early days. And then by the time that you and I were going to E3 together, I was more advanced in my career, first as a game tester, then as a game designer. And then eventually I was there for the most legitimate reason you could be there, which was to pitch a game I was designing at the time to a bunch of corporate people.
Yeah.
So the third thing that I think about is just the evolution of my own career and the role that E3 played in that. I could almost track my career progress every year by where am I at now in the industry.
Yeah, exactly.
As E3 would roll around. So
it's a fun little tidbit from Best Buy to a game designer pitching game designs.
Yeah.
For me, I was so my feelings first. It's kind of devastating that it's going away for all the reasons that you mentioned, but then also too, like as a citizen of the Southland, because we live in Southern California.
We're locals.
And we call it the Southland on local news, which is the best. But it was such a LA thing. And it was like when all of like people from all over the world in the video game industry would converge into LA, and like being there and meeting those people. Like I got to meet Miyamoto when I was like 20 years old. Like it was a walk by kind of a like a real quick hey, how you doing, guy kind of a thing.
Robin Williams was a annual attendee.
Yeah. There's all kinds of people like that.
I spent like 5 minutes hanging out with Pauly Shore. I mean, on those early E3s. I mean, I don't know if you can top that, but just the name drop.
Flew real close to the sun with that one. But no, honestly, Wheeze the Juice all day, every day.
Yeah,
all day, every day.
You have to.
What's up, YouTube? I'm here to kick things off. So it really helps if you click smash and switch on that liker subscribe button. Today's my first review of Cool as Ice on Laserdisc. It's a super badass movie. So you can see it right here. Here, check this shit out. I'm gonna pop it like this, so you can see me, and then also you can see right there. You can see Vanilla. Isn't he badass? And so like right here. Wait. Here's Vanilla. I think she's Bamberly. Vanilla's in love with Bamberly. And she falls in love with him because of the yellow motorbike. This movie's so fucking kick-ass. And like what makes it special is it's on a laser disc. It's like a big CD. It's like a big badass CD, but with Vanilla Ice on it and Bamberly. It's so sick. My favorite part of the movie is like when he's driving real fucking fast on that yellow bike. And like she's like, oh man, I'm creaming over it, And like he doesn't give a shit. Vanilla doesn't give a shit, man.
But yeah, so there's it's certainly a sadness of it going away and knowing that it's obviously not going to come back in any real capacity. To your point, we were talking about Best Buy and all that stuff. A lot of people. So when I got to go to E3 legitimately, it's from my workings in the TV industry. So like I got to like have a badge that said like producer on it, and that got you to wherever you really wanted to go.
Yeah, you were the guy I was looking for in the early 2000s. I just talked to this guy; he'll give me a job.
Which ruled because people would read the badge and then like be like, "Oh, come play my game." Like skip these lines, and like they had no idea that like what my badge actually meant. But I didn't tell them because special treatment is the best.
Yeah, you gotta lean into that.
So and I went later years where you didn't. So I went 09, 10, and 11, and I think also 12. The 12 was my last year, I believe. But watching a lot of people, the Best Buy employees of the world, then turning it into like being like an open to the public show, like that was, I think, like a blessing and a curse. Like it was obviously cool and awesome that like a lot more people got to go and experience E3 and like create their own fun E3 memories. Like I'm not trying to take that shit away from people. But it made things like insanely difficult to want to try to play. And I think that like where E3 ended up in like these final like last gasps, you could kind of point it to where the show had evolved that into that. We're talking about like people going to the Nintendo booth at the opening, lining up, and not being able to get in there for like the end of the day. So like, you know, tens of thousands of people trying to basically just cram the Nintendo booth
to do one thing.
Yeah.
And not be able to do it.
And then that actually like, I mean, obviously like journalists and stuff have their appointments and whatnot, but for other people who are like kind of on the rim of the industry, like kind of like me, like I was working in TV, but at any time I could make a lateral move if I felt like it. But like I was kind of that person where I'm still very much interested in video games, and I'm at E3 obviously for a reason, but like, you know, I can't check out a cool new game that I'm interested in because, you know, it became PAX basically.
Yeah.
And I've never been to a show like PAX, but I've been to several like retro gaming shows, and they're not gigantic, but they're not nothing either. It's a lot of people, a lot of walking around, a lot of talking to people and all that stuff.
You know, I looked at the attendance figures for E3, and believe it or not, the one that we went to in 2005, according to Wikipedia, had the highest attendance, 70,000.
2005 is a really, really special one too for a lot of reasons, but keep going.
A lot of reasons, yeah. So, and in fact, I had notes on this too because there were a lot of pretty major announcements that year. But the year, if you look at just it from an attendance perspective, the years that we were going together were the best years, and I think 2007 was when it got too crazy for them, and for 1 year they shut it down, and it was only going to be a really exclusive industry event. I think they only gave out 5,000 tickets.
Well, do you remember the year where it wasn't in the convention center? I think it was 07 or 08.
That was the same year. The Santa Monica Airport was,
they had locations everywhere, and people would have to like be
shuttle?
carted around. Yeah, and like, well, you were talking about going from like the west side of LA to like an area where the convention center is. Like that distance wise is only like, you know, should be 10 minutes, but it's LA traffic, so it takes like hundreds of hours to accomplish this.
People are getting to the one location looking like the hobbits from Lord of the Rings.
So all E3s were not equal, and all E3s weren't all magic rainbows and what have you. But I'll say the E3s that I went to, every one of them was magical for a different reason.
For different reasons, yeah. Oh, and I should say the figure 70,000 people was the 05 attendance. One? Yeah. Okay, it's pretty hefty.
So, where do you want to talk about your first E3, or do you want to talk about like the history of it as an institution?
Just my experience at E3, and I'll go through the early years briefly. The very first E3s that I went to, Warcraft 3 had not come out yet, and I'm a big PC gamer, a big PC strategy gamer specifically, and this was the absolute heyday of RTS games. In the wake of StarCraft 2, everybody was making an RTS. So I remember one E3, there was Warcraft 3 was there, and I was really excited to see that, and then Empire Earth was there, and I can't remember the developer behind that, but I was pretty excited for that. And then Rise of Nations, which was developed by Brian Reynolds, who came from Sid Meier's company, and had worked on important turn-based strategy games, so that was there. And I remember feeling privileged to be like, it's like, oh my god, there's Brian Reynolds.
Yeah,
it's like the way a kid like looks up like Barry Bonds or something, or like a major baseball player.
In a few moments you'll see photographic evidence of the people that I was extremely proud to meet, and they're good. They're rock solid.
I can't wait to see your version of Brian Reynolds. So anyway, hopefully Brian, if you're listening, that was a great moment in my life. Thank you for making Civilization 2.
And I don't know who you are.
So just designed a little game called Civilization 2. Ever heard of it?
I thought that was Sid Meier.
Maybe it was. I think he was the lead designer. Sid Meier had his name on it. Then Brian Reynolds left, and he made Alpha Centauri. For his.
So Sid Meier was like the Robert Pattinson.
It's like how like John Madden doesn't actually make John Madden football.
What?
It turns out
he does.
He's not in his basement coding.
What the? That would be so cool. Just cranking away on an old Apple IIe pure assembly.
I do like the idea of like somebody sitting him down and putting the game in front of him and giving him a controller, and he's just like staring blankly.
Yeah, and he'll be
like, no, sir, your name is on this product.
Does the check clear? Then old Johnny's all good to go, baby.
It's good. How do I look on the cover shot? No, we're using Peyton Manning on the cover.
Tough acting, 10 acting. But back to E3. So that was your first one in the 90s? 99?
No, it was 2000. I'm almost positive.
Okay.
2000, and then 2001. I have notes here on this. The Xbox was announced and the GameCube was announced, and I do remember that.
Okay.
Because we were all kind of unsure about the Xbox. So we'll talk about the Phantom, of course, but
Yes, naturally.
everybody thought the Phantom was a joke going into it. The Xbox, though, was different. Everybody was more curious about it. Like, what is this thing? Can it actually compete? What are
Right.
the game's going to be for? And then the GameCube, too, there was a lot of interest in that. And I remember playing it and being like, hey, this actually looks really cool. Luigi's Mansion at the time.
Yeah.
And 20 years later, it's held up really well in terms of the graphical quality.
I was just playing Luigi's Mansion on a GameCube like a month ago.
Yeah.
And it looks just as good.
It's
like
unbelievable.
The resolution isn't there, obviously, because we're
Yeah.
used to like fancy 4K and what have you. But the fact that was like a launch game that people pooped all over because it wasn't a Mario game.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
it was weird.
right.
It was like
Yeah.
a weird like departure. Like the GameCube kind of started off on a bad foot, but that's another tale for another
Yeah.
time. So then let's fast forward a bit to 2003,
Okay.
our first E3 together.
I have a note here, and I'm just going to the blank platform for you.
Uh-huh.
Talk about the Ninja Turtle sewer.
Yeah. So we stayed in a hotel, which is a nice way of putting it, where like it looked like the sewer hangout
Yeah.
playset of like the Ninja Turtles.
Which you correctly identified and talked about immediately.
Yeah.
And then it became that for the rest of the weekend, for the rest of the next 20 years.
Yeah.
It was immediately the Ninja Turtle
Well, and I
sewer.
wonder too if that hotel is still even there, because I know they've done a lot of development in that area. It probably isn't, but it was seriously, it looked like a sewer hangout, but
I
it
will
was right
mourn-
outside a hotel.
I'll mourn the death of that the same way I
Yeah.
mourn E3. That was a great hotel for that weekend.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So our first E3 together rather was 03, and there's a lot of games that were there that were pretty standout. There's even one big one that off the top of my head that was debuted there that never came out was for the GameCube, the multimedia capture card thing that they were demoing.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And that might have been I think it was the same year as they were pushing the Game Boy Advance connectivity thing.
Yeah.
And it was like a big questionable period for Nintendo, I feel, where like they had definitely started losing the faith of like, you know, the average game mainstream gamer. They had gone the way of the PS2 because of DVDs.
And we had talked about this before, but beginning with the Super Nintendo, there were, I believe, 3 consoles consecutively that sold fewer units than the console before. So the Super Nintendo sold less than the 8-bit Nintendo,
Right.
and then the N64 sold less than the Super Nintendo, and then the GameCube sold less than the N64. And then and that's when we're going to E3, and it's like, Nintendo, what's really going on? And it wouldn't be until the Wii that they sort of found their stride again.
Yes, and even that, what you could argue, there was a dip in the road pretty shortly after.
Oh yeah,
after that bad boy came. But so that E3 was like, I am a dyed-in-the-wool Nintendo fan. I have many precious moments dolls up there that are visible in the wide.
I know this morning you were polishing them all up to get on camera.
My babies need to look their best for showtime. Okay.
Like, he'll just fucking tear ass down the street, and her dad's like a total dick about it, and he doesn't trust her at all, right? Like, Beth Bamberly doesn't at all trust Bamberly, which is so sad if you think about it. But, like, I'll probably say, like, maybe this movie's like a 300 out of a 10. Easy. My favorite part of the movie is like when they're at the construction site and they just start hip hop dancing, because Vanilla is a big time hip hopper. He started it like way back in the day, like everybody knows it too. And then he's like a kick-ass yellow bike speed racer. You know what I'm saying? So like all the way, all day, dude, all fucking day, right? I recommend this movie to anybody who likes rap hop and yellow motorbikes and like dads who are dicks. That's a big like thing that I'm into. Like I'm into dick dads, you know what I mean? Like fucking badass shit like that. Hey, check this out. Watch this. Whoa! Check this out. Whoa! Check it out again. Whoa! And you'll see shit like that in this movie too, which is like what inspired me to do all this. So, like, you know, basically, like, thanks for watching. Click subscribe and smash like, and I'll be doing more of these because I love laser discs and I love movies and I love laserdisc movies. So, like, thanks for checking it out, and thanks for checking me out. And like, hold on, one more badass one. Watch this. And like, checking that out, like Star Wars. All right, man. I love you, and keep it cool or whatever. Subscribe. Like it and subscribe it.
Nice.